everybody. I'm so excited to bring Stephanie to you, and I'm going to explain in a minute where I met her and why we connected right away. So we are now officially live streaming into the Hey Taxi community. We're also being recorded, and I'm really glad you guys are all here today. I met Stephanie. I had hopped on a lunch and learn with a networking group that I am with. It's Lead Up for Women. So a lot of you have heard me talk about the importance of networking, right? And Missy, I think you were on this last lunch and learn, weren't you, with Lead Up for Women? The one with the girl talking about publishing books, right? So Lead Up for Women, I go to the lunch and learns every Tuesday because I always learn a lot, and it's a great networking opportunity. And then, so it's every Tuesday at noon, and then there's also a monthly networking as well. So I happened to hop on, and oddly, right, definitely oddly, there weren't very many people on this lunch and learn because it was about insurance.
Dang it, it happens every time.
Insurance, right?
No one wants the insurance gal to come. No one invites me to their parties.
Because when I talk about taxes, people are like,
oh, I know.
Same thing, right? Same thing. So Stephanie and I started chatting, and I'm like, I want you to come on my driver. Usually I just do driver's ed updates. I'm like, I want you to come on driver's ed. Like, I didn't want to wait like 4 months to try to schedule it into one of our VIP trainings. I'm like, I want you to come now. She said, okay.
Yes.
So here she is. And because we were talking about all the different kinds of business insurance, and unfortunately why it's so important and necessary.
Right.
And so without further ado, I did give you screen sharing rights. We're going to launch right into Stephanie sharing with you. And this is interactive. She's going to like keep yourself unmuted unless you have a dog barking in the background, which I probably will at some point because all of my dog minders are not here. But keep yourself unmuted and just ask questions, because Stephanie makes this as fun as insurance can be and really interactive. So jump up and raise your hand and tell her what you know and tell her what you don't know, and we'll go from there. But stay on till the end, because we have some big announcements with Hey Taxi that are happening. So go ahead, take it away, Stephanie.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me. I think that it's such a neat opportunity to talk about insurance, because as small business owners, that's usually the last thing on your docket. You're worried about getting your brand, your business, and you get it established, and insurance is usually the last thing on the burner, at least it is for most people. So raise your hand. Who has insurance of any kind? Raise your hand. Raise another hand if you love it. Do you love insurance? No, one, no, kind of, Kathy. I get it. I understand. Well, there's a lot of different kinds of insurance, but for me, I'm just going to share my screen here to show how business insurance works, regardless of the, one second. Let's see, what the heck? Let me see. My screen is, there we go. Perfect. Okay, so what I like to do is talk about business insurance, because what happens a lot of times, the first question a lot of people say is, gosh, I just started my own business, regardless of the type of industry, at what point do I need insurance? So that's a big, big part of it. So the one question I always say, there's two types of policies that are out there in all of the insurance land, essentially for business owners. One is called general liability, and one is called professional liability. Tell me, who knows what's the difference between the two? Does anyone know? Raise your hand or shout it out if you can. What is the difference between general liability and professional liability? No one yet. I know.
Well, if nobody else is going to jump in, I would say that professional liability has more to do with your business and who you're representing yourself to be. Like, professional liability would have to do with if you're giving people advice, Missy, about toxins in their house, right? And recommendations about toxicity of different cleaners, or Mandy, if you're training people on how to fly a hot air balloon and maybe you don't do that very well, then you possibly have a professional liability versus general liability, which is just everything, right?
Yep, exactly. So the biggest thing in general liability is perfect. It's related to your business that causes harm to someone, but not due to your advice. The best example is a trip and fall. So if you have an office space or you host a meeting space and someone comes in and trips on your power cord or things like that, that would be a general liability policy. The biggest important thing, especially for a lot of small business entrepreneurs, regardless of the industry, is to have professional liability. Because if your professional liability covers anything that you as your business or your advice gives to someone that then causes them harm. So an example is, say, a health coach, right? I told you to do this, 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 and this, and my body didn't turn out well, so I'm going to sue you because I spent all this money to do it. Or you're my marketing coach and you had me spend all this money on certain websites or optimizations and it didn't work, and I'm going to sue you. Or I'm a wedding photographer and you made me look poofy and now I want to sue you. Which happens, this kind of stuff, professional liability claims happen quite often, unfortunately, and it's the one policy that you can have as a small business owner to protect yourself, to make sure that you guys are okay. The neat thing is those policies are like $500, $600 a year total, and it provides up to $1 million coverage. So if you or any of your team give bad advice to someone, and by taking your advice, it causes them harm in any way, shape, or form, that professional liability will cover you, which is pretty neat. So the big thing is a lot of small businesses, they host seminars at a hotel. So the question is, do I need an event insurance, or does it come with professional or general liability? Anyone have an idea?
I think it would cover general, and then, yeah, I think it would fall under general.
Yes.
That's what I would say.
Yep, exactly. You can have it two different ways. Thanks for saying
A
it. So,
certificate
yeah,
saying that hotel name on it.
that's it. You're on it. Yeah, you got it. So if you have a general liability policy, it's an annual 1-year policy, and it's depending on how you structure your business. If you do just one seminar a year or one event a year, then yeah, then you would just get an event insurance. If booze is not served, it's like $250 for, the actual event of. So that's one way to do it. But if you do anything more than one, it'll be cheaper in the long run for you to do a general liability policy. The general liability policy, Alex, to your point, is to say, man, you would ask the insurance company to list, the Marriott that you're hosting your event on as on the certificate, so they'll have to do that. So the big thing is, and that's when we talked with Dawn, and she had a past career in catering and things like that. So in terms of when you host events, this is something I always want to talk about. When you host events as a personal level, like you're hosting a party, or as a business event and you're bringing in a photographer, you're bringing in a caterer, you gotta make sure you ask about having their insurance. Dawn, will you share your example of that wedding and that chair story?
Absolutely. So I don't know, maybe not everybody knows, I have a long career in special events. So my first company in 1989 was a special event production company, which I started in my kitchen, pregnant with my first son, and grew it to be a $10 million company with 150 employees. So we did and we were all about insurance, right? So we had a lady who we did an event, and she sued us because she sat down in a chair and it broke. And we didn't even supply the chairs. We just happened to be a decorator at the event. It was a wedding, and she sat in the chair and it broke. I'm not sure whether she even, of course she claimed that she got hurt, but I don't think it was an extensive, she didn't break her back or anything like that. And, but she sued us. And we had to go through the whole process, even though we had nothing to do with that chair at all, right?
And then, yeah. And that's what's so crazy, things about saying, because I've broken more chairs than I want to admit. But if you're at an event and you're hosting it, and the vendors, the DJ or the photographer or whoever you have coming, if they don't have their own insurance and something goes down at the event, it will automatically roll up to you. And so the way to protect yourself is to have make sure that every single person has their insurance. So I was telling the group last time, is we had a gal who hosts cooking classes just in her home, 5-7 people at a time. But what she didn't have insurance. So what happened is that she had used pitted olives. So they were, it was marked that they shouldn't have had the pits in them. But unfortunately, one of the guests bit down on the olive and ended up having a tremendous impact or two. She had to have, had to go to the dentist, had to have surgery, blah, 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 blah. And so what happened is the guest of the cooking class sued the gal cooking and as a host, but because she didn't have her own insurance, it was not covered. So it was an out-of-pocket expense. So when you think about, man, is there anything, I always say Murphy's Law keeps me in business, right? So if it's that one time that ends up happening, one policy will protect its weight in gold. And the same thing goes just as us as a personal use when you use any kind of handyman or repair guy or gal. You have to make sure they have their own insurance. A lot of those guys and gals don't. But what happens is if they do cause harm to you or your property, there is no retribution for you to go and get that fixed. So it's worth it's a hassle to have your and people who do any work for you one way or the other, personally or professionally, to have their own insurance. Quick question. Okay, so you're just a small shop at this point. You just have laptops or printers. Is it covered under my home insurance or do I need commercial insurance? Who wants to guess?
Are you talking about if they get stolen or okay.
Any ideas?
I
Well,
would say home.
home, yeah, it can be covered under home. There is, it's called business pursuits on premise and business pursuits off premise. So on home policies, there's a lot of stipulation in terms of, is your business an appropriate risk for your home policy? One of the biggest determining factors is foot traffic. So if you're just a one-man band or you have Avon and you don't have people come to your home very often and you do everything online or come there, then yeah, you can probably put that on your home insurance policy. So you're covered under that as well as your contents. But the big thing is if you don't tell your home insurance policy or renter's insurance policy that you do this as a business, then it won't be covered. So home insurance never covers business pursuits. And that I think is a big misconception on small business owners just starting. We're like, well, I have home or renter's insurance. I'm sure I have coverage. You got to tell them. And then as long as they say, yep, it's cool, then you're fine. But if not, you want to make sure you have that. All right, next. And the other thing is, especially for the ones who have products, most all home insurance policies don't cover coverage for your inventory or products. So that, depending on what you have going, if you do keep a lot of supplies at your house, that might be another reason to just go ahead and get your own business policy. But if you don't have it and you just do some consulting, then you should be fine with the home insurance coverage. Okay, so what is a coverage that would protect me if someone hacks into my system and steals my client's information, which is actually a really big risk for small business owners. You would think we heard the Targets and all the other major, retail shops that get that happen all the time. But is there a coverage in a policy that would protect you for that?
Cyber insurance.
Cyber insurance.
Yes, exactly. Cyber insurance. You guys are so good. Not many people have it. I love it. Dang it. Yeah. So it's called cyber liability. And it provides coverage. So if someone hacks into your system, unfortunately, anything you can do about it, and steals your client's information, the coverage would provide coverage for the people whose identity is stolen to pay for, what's it called, LifeLock concept for a year, for reimburse any fees for credit monitoring, pay any fines. But if you don't have cyber liability coverage, then that comes out of your pocket as a small business owner. So cyber liability is unfortunately more common than not. I was sharing with the last group, we had a smaller restaurant, probably 30 seats in the whole place, and he had been doing business for a long time. But one of the servers ended up stealing their point of sale system and took the credit cards. And so he ended up having to financially pay for the credit monitoring for all of those people at that time. And it just was a huge financial hardship for him because of that, just because he didn't have a coverage that would cost him probably $15 a year in that policy. That's what I like about insurance. You know, it's just like Costco. More you buy, less it is. All right, the famous question on staff. I have one part-time staff. Do I have to have workers' comp policy in force?
Are you paying them on payroll?
Good question. Yes.
Then yes.
Yes, you do. Yeah. Even part-time. Workers' comp is required, even part-time employees. So you definitely have to get it. And if something happens and you don't have the workers' comp, then you can get fined in addition to the unpaid claim. So you do have to have work comp. But where the biggest gray line in the industry is on that second one. My business only uses subcontractors, only uses 1099 employees. So I don't have to provide workers' comp, and I don't need to make sure they have it, right? Is that what most people?
1099ers should have their own insurance.
Yes, ma'am. Own workers' comp insurance. Because, oh man, this is the biggest gray area, because sometimes because what'll happen is, the cool thing about workers' comp policy, you as a small business owner, is if you have workers' comp and your employee gets hurt, if they have a work comp policy, they cannot sue you for being hurt. If you don't have a workers' comp policy, then they can sue you. So when you are dealing with subcontractors and 1099s, it gets very gray. A lot of attorneys will say, because I use Susie, she does, she has a routine now with me. She comes in 3 days a week and works with these clients. Then something happens and someone can say, well, gosh, do you give her routine information about time, place, and work? And so if something happens and they don't have their workers' comp policy for themselves, and you don't have one because you're just a one-man band, and someone gets hurt, then that happens. So
as a 1099er, what's a general premium for how is that based? What's the base? How do you base the cost for the premium on a 1099?
Yes, exactly. So there is a thing called ghost policies, which it's a kind of a silly thing, but it's important to do to keep you out of hot water if there's a claim. But what happens is the cost is based on the type of job. So if you're a roofer or you're an admin, the cost will be the same. But as a small, say, Stephanie Schaffroth, one-man band, I'm whatever I do, then I would get a workers' comp policy on myself. I would exclude myself, but at least I have a workers' comp policy, so I pay little. It's like $500 a year. But now this would give my people I do 1099 work for that peace of mind that I cannot come back and sue them if I ever get hurt. And then you would want the same for anyone you work with. So going back to a handyman scenario, unfortunately, there's just so many things that happen, knock on wood, but we had a guy who was a handyman, and he brings in guys, to sub it out, work on jobs, regardless if he's an electrician or a plumber, whatever the case was. But he was a one-man band, but he chose not to get a workers' comp policy himself because he just used his 1099s when the job requires it, which I understand. And he just doesn't verify the guys have it because a lot of the trade guys and gals don't. What happened was he was at a job, and one of the subcontractors used his own tool to work on a job, and his own tool slipped, and he had a screwdriver go through his eye. And it was his own fault and is his own tool, but because he didn't have any insurance, and because my customer didn't have insurance, the guy unfortunately lost his eye. It was a really hardcore deal. He ended up, of course, getting a lawyer, and he's going back and suing my handyman because he was on the job site for my handyman. Although the guy was hired as a subcontractor, the lawyer is finding all the gray areas to be able to bring a suit, which unfortunately is going to dissolve my handyman's business, unfortunately. But it's just those weird one-offs, but for one policy, peace of mind.
Stephanie, can I ask you a question about that?
Yes, please.
I'm sorry. Sharon, did you want to go first?
I work as a part-time assistant.
Okay.
And sometimes I work at home and sometimes I work at her house. And it is, I'm considered self-employed.
Okay.
So she pays me by the hour, but I'm considered self-employed. So I just was curious about that and how
So
that
you-
works.
Exactly. So you go to her home. So you're essentially a 1099 where she pays you an hourly rate to do stuff, whether it's at your property or hers. And the stuff that you do for her, do you, what, as an assistant, whether it's paperwork or finances or whatever the case is, do you have your own insurance policy professionally?
No, I didn't really know that I needed one, honestly.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
did have one or two incidents where she used to have dogs and I would have to take the dogs out and everything. And there were a couple times that I fell outside with the dogs. And honestly, she and I are really, really good friends, which sometimes can make things different. But she gave me some money to go to the chiropractor. Unfortunately, it wasn't any big deal, but anyway, but I didn't think about having to have insurance on myself for that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's like you said, I'm sorry that you fell, but that is, I always tell people friends are friends until a claim happens, because thankfully you weren't hurt. But gosh, can you imagine if it really did jolt your back and you did result in physical, PT and all that stuff? Where does the funds come from that? So she would be as an employer, even though you're self-employed, as a gal directing your day-to-day activities for the most part, in terms of expectations. So best practice would be for her to have a small workers' comp policy, a few $100s for the year, because it's just based on your salary as an admin. So it's not going to be, like a roofer or window cleaner. So best practice would be to happen. So gosh, because if you can imagine that, you heaven forbid fell on the job, or now you're taking as an employee her dogs for a walk that end up nipping someone, and because home insurance doesn't cover business pursuits. If they were your dogs, then your home insurance liability would cover if they nipped someone.
And I know that she did check in to see if her home insurance would cover it or not. But at that point, it was just in her backyard. It was just to take them out to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So, so you're saying that she should have it, not that I should have it.
Yeah, exactly. So because that protects you, and then it also protects her, because home insurance, because you were at her, if you were just a normal buddy over, for, lunch, and you take out the dogs and you have that fall, it's either medical coverage or initially, and then liability coverage on your home that would put you back together. But because you're working with your employee hat on, even self-employed hat on, then that's when the home insurance and business pursuits don't come into play. So it would be best practice for her to have a small workers' comp policy, even though you're 1099, to protect you, because otherwise, if you do really get hurt and she doesn't have that, you can always sue her, which is, like you said, if it's minor, you wouldn't, but if it's major, you might, to put yourself back together.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Cool. And then did you have another one, babe?
So I think what Sharon asked pretty much covers what I was looking for too, because I have people from time to time do little jobs, whether that's mailings or things like that, but none of them make $600 a year at all.
Right.
And so, but I'm still responsible for what happens to them, even though they're not considered an employee. And I'm not 1099ing them.
Yeah. So if you're not 1099 and they don't have their own policy, because especially for, the minor jobs, right? If they're under $600, they're probably not going to spend the money to get their own insurance. So it would be best practice for you to just have a workers' comp policy. You could put 2 staff, make the total annual payroll, 15,000 would be a lot, and that gives you peace of mind. Because what'll happen is if they take their car to the post office and, mail something on your behalf and get in an accident, that attorney is going to roll up to you. So there's 2 ways you can cover it. One is on a workers' comp policy, or it's called on a general liability policy. It's called non-owned auto. So they're taking their own job to go to the grocery store to buy, cookies for your event or mail something on your behalf, and they get in an accident. Non-owned auto liability, which comes in a general liability policy automatically. will cover if they come back and sue you. So that would be something, that would be a reason already. If you have people doing errands for you, get a general liability policy. And then how workers' comp works, it's really neat because you just base it on approximate number of staff, part-time or full-time, and approximate payroll. And it could be, you know, gosh, 10,000 or what, you know, for the year. It doesn't have to be major. And what happens is you pay it monthly or annually. And at the end of every year, what'll happen is the workers' comp policy will say, let's just pair up and do a quick audit. Let me see how much you did end up paying to how much you thought you were going to pay. And if you overshot it, you'll get a refund. If you undershot it, they'll say, yeah, give us an extra $50 or whatever the case is. So it's a neat way to keep yourself safe without having to do it. But if you have people on there doing that kind of stuff, I personally would have a general liability policy first and foremost to make sure.
Even if they're, so I understand what you said, and I think that's awesome. Even if they're not considered employees, I should still do,
yeah, but yeah, I would,
employee
because
comp.
yeah, it just, because my thought is if something would have happened yesterday, knock on wood, and they get hurt in doing a job that you told them to do, where is that coverage going to come from? You know, they can go against their own health insurance, if assuming they have it, but if there's something where it takes them out of commission for a while, most people will come back and look for, gosh, you know, because I, you know, ran this errand for you and I got in this accident or whatever the case may happen, I can't work now. Where is the coverage going to come from? So that's the part when you think, man, if it happened yesterday, where would the money come from?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Gotcha. All right. So yeah.
That's good to know because I do post office errands and other errands for my friend too, and my job. So
yeah, because when you think about it, you know, you have your own personal auto insurance, of course. So, but when you're doing it on behalf of an employer, it changes the dynamic. So that's where, gosh, even on HOAs and the board of directors, you know, going to the grocery store to get, you know, cookies for their HOA party. When that kind of weird stuff happens and there's an accident, any lawyer is going to get, and then they'll attach just as much as often as they can. So you just build up that armor. It doesn't have to be really expensive to make sure you're protected. Oh, Don, you're on mute.
So sorry. So as much as you have a situation where, oh, it's my best friend who works with me, she would never sue me. Got it. She would never sue you. But if something does happen and she, for whatever reason, has to get a lawyer, it's the lawyer that's going to be pushing the lawsuit, not your best friend. So even if you're in a situation where, of course, my best friend would never sue me, my sister would never sue me, right?
Oh man, yeah. So one of the weird, and the thing is, at the end of the day, I understand it, but it's still a hard pill for me to take. So last summer, Corona crazy, everyone was staying in, but I had a customer who had, he wasn't a customer of mine, like a referral or whatever. He wasn't with me insurance wise, but we were talking and I had recently seen him. And then the next time I saw him, he had a leg brace. I'm like, what the heck happened? He goes, oh, I was at a family friend pool party and I was chasing my own kid around the pool. And then I fell down and my kneecap went one way and it was really dramatic. I'm like, oh man. And he goes, yeah, we're just starting the insurance process now. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then anyway, long story short, I see him one more time and I said, whatever happened to that? So he was chasing his own kid at the pool party he chose to go to, and he hurt himself because he fell down, of course. He ended up suing the homeowner, and the bummer is they sued because of the knee. They had to have a knee surgery. It was like a dramatic thing. It was, the gal only had $100,000 of liability coverage, and he's a self-employed guy who makes a lot more than that, and she didn't have an umbrella. And I'm like, dude, you were chasing your own damn kid. But in his regard, he's like, I'm a small business owner and I can't work and I have this damn knee. And I'm like, holy smokes. So you never know. It's literally the worst. And you know, I see both sides of the coin, but I'm like, that's not fair to her. You know, if it's within her policy limits, I get, but when you get a lawyer involved, they're going to go for all they can. And I'm like, dang. So it's bananas. This is crazy. So one of the other questions is, especially when you, like you said, you have staff for money, you know, help them with money. So if you own, if it was your own long-term employee that stole all the registration for money that you were having for an upcoming event, would you be covered? Well, if you would, what would be the coverage to do that? Any ideas? It's a coverage called employee dishonesty. And that comes in a general liability policy. So a lot of times employee dishonesty is always a long-term employees. It seems like one of the auditors with farmers, at least, I mean farmers, but it's always the long-term ones, and they just get in a situation where they're like, well, I'll pay it back with good intentions. But as a business owner, you need to have that coverage, and it's called employee dishonesty. All right, any other questions? All right, the last question is
I have a question.
Yeah.
Show of hands or say in the chat, is this helpful?
Hey,
Like seriously, are we so glad I bumped into Stephanie at a lunch and learn a couple weeks ago? I mean, I am. I know a lot about insurance, and I know helpful and a little scary, Denise. I'm with you. But it's like with taxes, it's the same thing. We have to be educated. It's our responsibility as business owners, even though we might just be starting out, or we might just have a very small business that's not making a lot of money. That's not going to matter to somebody who's coming in to sue you. So we have to be educated, and we have to protect ourselves.
thank you. And I think the biggest misconception is having all this insurance costs a lot, and it doesn't. It really doesn't. So, you know, depending on the type of job you have, I'm in Arizona, but I can always brainstorm with you about what you need in whatever state you're in. I'm happy to do that, just as like you said, let's brainstorm and hash out exactly what you have and exactly where your exposure is and what you need. But there's so many tricks of the trade. And that's what's so neat, is that no one has, you know, a lot of times as an agent, everyone's buying online, so no one has that personal, like you say, this is what I got. And if you say, oh, if you get this and this and this, and it just, because one claim, I always tell people, do not lose your business over one claim. It's just not worth it. And it's not that expensive compared to, I always tell people there's two costs to insurance: what you pay in a premium and what you pay out of pocket for an uncovered claim. And I'd always put my money on my premium. Oh, brother. Now, Don, do you want me to do the personal, auto, and home, or we'll leave a commercial and then to do that a second time? What do you want to do?
Well, can we do it just a quick overview so people just get a taste of it?
Yeah, Alex, go for it.
Really quick.
Can you write in policies in other states?
Depends on the state, but if not, I'm happy to brainstorm and I'll make sure you're safe wherever you go. Happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So the big thing with auto insurance, because I always like to say there's a couple things. So auto insurance is broken into two major coverages. So these are a series of numbers. Every state has it, regardless of where you're at. The first one is it kicks in, knock on wood, if you are at fault in an accident. The first is 100,000. This stands for 100,000 per person. And then the next one is 300,000. That's for the whole accident. This is the minimum coverage I recommend for people. And what it does is that 100,000 pays for the other person's bodily injury, medical bills, time off work, and pain and suffering. And what happens is if heaven forbid you smush someone and they're really hurt, if their injuries and issues are above that dollar amount, it's coming out of your pocket. And it doesn't have to be too dramatic of an accident to cost that much anymore. 100,000 for this number stands for property damage. So that pays for what you hit in an at-fault accident, whether it's cars or street poles. So here on Monday, I got a call and the customer said, and I said, how you doing? He goes, not well. And I said, why? He goes, I have a car in my backyard, and the car went all the way through his backyard and smushed all of his wood, cement or brick blocks, rock wall into his pool. And I'm like, so where the coverage would come is the driver who went through the dang wall would pay for the 100,000. But as Murphy's Law kicks in, that driver did not have insurance, so he's going to go on his own home policy. So that's important. And I always say, especially in the worlds of Teslas and all that, if you have anything under this level and you see a Tesla or a Ferrari, just scoot over, let them pass. The next coverage, which is more important to me because this protects you and anyone in your car, is when you're fault free in an accident. This is 100,000 per person, 300,000 per accident, whether they have no insurance or they have some, it's just not enough to put you back together. So this pays for your medical bills, your time off work, your pain and suffering, and any lawsuits. In Arizona, I don't know, I'm sure other states are not that much better, but at least in Arizona, we're famous for a lot of things. But in Arizona, 1/3 of Arizona drivers do not have insurance, and 1/3 have the state minimums. And for Arizona, that's 25,000 per person. So I'd encourage you to kind of see where you're at in your state. But I tell you, man, if you're in the middle lane and you look to the right and left at a red light, it's a scare. I wouldn't go to Vegas on those odds. So to me, this is the stuff that really matters. Well, a lot of people have the idea is I just have an old beater up car. I got a 2000 Honda Civic that has 1 million miles on it. Has no relevance on this part of the coverage. That's where you'll come to this part of the coverage. Real quick, medical, if you have it, great. It's if you first slam your friend's hand in the door, just pays to keep friends friendly is what we say. Comprehensive and collision are your deductibles. This matters on the type of car you have. So you would pay the first $500 and the insurance company would pay the rest to get your car back. Comprehensive if it were stolen or hail damage, and then collision is exactly that. And then of course the bells and whistles are the towing and the glass. But is your insurance dollar, I challenge you all, if you have not looked at your insurance, and myself, I've been with Farmers 17 years, but before I knew I had full coverage of my windshield's okay. I'm like, I don't know what I have. I had state minimums, of course. And I tell people, man, this is the insurance. If it's not in place, the bottom stuff, it's going to ruin your day. It's going to be so frustrating. It's going to ruin your month. You got to borrow a car from someone. You got to Uber everywhere. It's frustrating. This coverage, if it's not in place, will financially ruin you. So you really got to make sure when you're spending your insurance dollar to do it. And no kidding, to go from the state minimums to the 100,000, $8 a month, if that, for most people. So it's cheap to do that. So just make sure to do it. Any questions on that real quick? All right. If you do, I'm happy to just review whatever state you're in, and just to kind of give you some suggestions. But this is a coverage that's really important. Then the next one is on home or renter's insurance. The dwelling comes automatically predetermined by the insurance company on what the reconstruction cost is. But personal property, I always like to talk about it. It's the visual. If you rent a home or an apartment, same concept. If you take your place upside down and shake it, whatever falls out is going to be covered under personal property. But all insurance companies have special limits for 4 things. It's jewelry, guns, sports cards, and artwork. Any idea on, so you have 300,000 of stuff, if you will, any idea, because we're all pretty much the same, on how much jewelry coverage automatically comes with it?
5,000.
Yeah, you're on it, 5,000. But say you have a fancy wedding ring. I used to have one. So I had a fancy wedding ring.
You need to have it appraised.
You do, and it's called a floater or a rider. And what would happen is so many people assume I have a home or renters, it's automatically covered. Well, it's covered. One piece is it's 5,000 total for jewelry, all of jewelry, no more than 1,000 or 1,500 per piece, and all insurance carriers are like that. So the wedding rings, the watches, the special necklaces, if you have that onesie or twosie, you got to get it appraised and added as a floater or rider. 2 reasons. One is you can get the full value and not just 1,500 for crying out loud. But the other reason is because it covers a thing called mysterious disappearance. So I had a diamond wedding ring and I went swimming and I'm back up, but my ring's here, but my stone's gone. Normal insurance doesn't cover it. A floater or rider would. Really cheap. So for 10,000 of jewelry coverage, about $100 a year. So it's worth the onesie twosies. You're not going to do it for all of your stuff.
It's really expensive to get jewelry appraised, though.
Yeah, there's tricks. So you could go to the initial one, they'll do it for free. If you bring your existing appraisal, they'll usually do it for a discounted rate. So there's some tricks of the trade, but usually if you're coming out fresh, it's $60 a piece or $70 depending on the jewelry. Then the last 2 other things I want to talk about real quick is liability. So liability in a home or renter's policy is this number. Make it show 500,000. It's literally $2 a month to go from 100,000 to 500,000. It's so cheap you can't even imagine. This 500,000 travels with you anywhere in the United States. If you accidentally hurt someone, not just on your property, it pays for the other people's medical bills, time off work, pain and suffering, any lawsuits. Big examples: dog bite. 1/3 of your liability claims are dog bites. We had a guy at a golf course take a backswing and bonk someone in the eye. We had a gal fall downstairs on vacation in California, and she took someone down on their way, she couldn't help it. But the gal came back and sued her, the gal who fell, because she hurt her as well, and she didn't have health insurance. So it's that liability coverage that will protect you if, knock on wood, you have anything. And then the deductible. Just the concept is the higher the deductible, the lower you pay. So that's the big one on that. And then the only other thing I like to talk about, it seems like it's a best kept secret in insurance, is an umbrella policy. An umbrella policy is literally, I use the word on purpose, cheap. I tell people it's sold in increments of $1 million, from $1 million to 10. And I tell people it's $1 million lawyer in your corner. Because what happens is one umbrella policy will cover you if, heaven forbid, you smush someone in an accident. Your auto coverage goes first. If it's above and beyond that, your umbrella kicks in. If you're on a pool party and you have your damn friend hurt his knee chasing his own kid, your home insurance comes in. But if it's above the limits, then your umbrella policy kicks in. It's just the one policy. If you have rental homes and your landlord, that same umbrella policy is going to cover all of it. The average 2-car, 1 home, or 1 renter's umbrella, $22 a month. But I tell people it's $1 million lawyer in your corner, because most insurance companies, if you heaven forbid smush someone or kill someone, and you have 50,000 or 100,000, they're going to write that check and say, here you go. I'm sorry about it. Now you're responsible for defending yourself up until the rest. And so that umbrella policy is that peace of mind to be able to do so. So it's just one of those things, man. The biggest one was, what was it? Whatever holiday we had. No, it was last November, because it's still going on. This older gentleman was in the grocery store, because at that time of Thanksgiving was just bananas, and he was going 1 mile an hour, backing up, and backed up and ended up hitting a grocery cart. So he hit the grocery cart. He unfortunately didn't get out. He's like, oh, well, I'll just keep going. Well, unfortunately, the grocery cart was held on, a lady was holding on to him. And she got really hurt, and he didn't see it because he was going 1 mile an hour. And so what happened was it exceeded the home and his auto liability limits. And now we are well into the umbrella, and we're a year out. And so he just has $1 million. I'm not sure we're going to extend that or not, but it's crazy. Just those weird things. He wasn't drinking and driving. It was 9 a.m. on a Thursday. And so it's just those weird things that happen that, man, for a $22 a month policy, can give you that peace of mind.
So if you have both the general and the professional liability for your company, and you add an umbrella, would that cover product liability?
Yes. So good question. Thank you for that. So product liability, yes. So now umbrella, there are 2 kinds, because personal insurance does not cover business pursuits. So you can have a personal umbrella for your auto, home, renters, landlord, properties, whatever. But if you have a personal umbrella, it's not going to cover you when you have an employer hat. So if you have your small business hat, you can get a general liability policy and professional liability policy. And then you can also have a professional umbrella, by all means. There's a company called Hiscox, Hiscox. That's who I use for professional liability a lot of times in Arizona. They're nationwide. But you can get, it's cool, because it's kind of like auto, home discount as a bundle. If you quote yourself a general liability policy, it's one price. If you quote yourself a business owner's policy, which is like all the bells and whistles, it's one price. And then the professional. But depending on the tricks of the trade, you can get bundles, getting 2 of them at the same time, and it'll be just almost the same.
So with Hitchcock, if you've got a professional, a general and a professional, and a cyber, and then an umbrella with that company, they'll group it and cover the product liability.
Yes, product liability is definitely covered as part of the general liability policy. Yes.
Really? Okay.
You have to choose it, but that's where it would come from.
Okay, so general covers product liability.
Yeah, so I just did one, like we had a guy who makes, bracelets and wallets and all that stuff for the Etsy's, and he's trying to get onto Amazon. So we went through Hiscox. It was $552 for the year, and it covers product liability. And then he's also has someone helping him make soaps. So if you sell soaps and it gives someone a rash or a skin condition and it really hurts someone, that product hurts someone, is that where that definition comes from, then that policy will cover them.
How do they base the umbrella for a business?
The type of risk. Yep. So depending on what type of work you do, they'll price it out that way. And how much you make.
Okay. So the Hiscox, that can do both general, professional, cyber, and umbrella?
Depending on the state and umbrella. So that's the only one, maybe not, but for sure, professional, general, and then business owners. So it's one or the two. And I, like you said, I'm happy. I'll put my info in here, and then I can always help review with you. Absolutely. And see what you need, regardless of whatever state you live in. I'm happy to do that just as a help to brainstorm.
Okay.
Great suggestion. Isn't insurance crazy? It's just wild. You know what I mean? It's just wild of the real life examples of like, holy smokes. But it's just always ones that the last thing you would think would ever happen. And so
well, my husband's car got stolen on the 16th at his office, and I've been dealing with that.
Oh, dang it. I tell you what, at his office, for crying out loud. I know.
Oh yeah, well, they got the guy on camera and everything, but the car's
doesn't help the car.
No, but the contents in the car was worth more than the car.
And contents in a car is not covered under car insurance.
No, it's home.
A lot of people think it's all part of the auto policy, but it's separate. So you got to make sure you have a home or renter's policy with the contents for that reason.
Oh,
man. Sorry I went through that.
No fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so thankful you guys are open and you know, hanging in there with me. Most people are like, insurance, see you later. But I think it's neat, and it's neat to help people, and it's neat to see if something does go sideways and you do have insurance of how smooth it should be, and that peace of mind that you don't have to have it on your shoulders, and to let someone else, you know, meaning the insurance company, take care of that financial hardship versus you. That's for sure. Oh, you're on mute still.
Am because I should be. You don't want to hear what's happening in the background here. Can you stop sharing your screen so we can see you and see everybody?
Yes.
So I just want to thank everybody for being on the call. I'm not going to keep going because we've already gone a really long time. And I do want to let you know that the October calendar is coming out chock full of great things. Really quick, October and November, our theme is productivity, productivity 1 and productivity 2. We're going to focus on, we have a training, a really high-end trainer coming in to train us on Evernote, which is information management. That's our VIP guest trainer. We have a gal coming in November to train. Thank you, Stephanie. Everybody, Stephanie's information is in the chat. Make sure you write it down. She was gracious to offer to take a look at everything we have. I know that we will be taking her up on that, won't we, Alex?
Yeah.
Alex works with me, Stephanie.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So, like, how lucky am I though? She's on top of it, isn't she?
Totally.
She knew all of it. So just really quick, you guys, just watch for the October calendar. There's a lot coming down the pike, really good stuff. And we have our new theme calendar for the next 12 months coming out that you'll be able to see. And obviously, as everybody knows, a lot of events are just for the empowered CEOs only. And we've now created 3 tiers of empowered CEO membership. So you'll be seeing how that works. And we have our business builders boot camp at the end of the month. October 26th, 27th, 28th from 7 to 8 at night, just 1 hour. If you remember, it's just 1 hour, chock full of information. A lot of you already took it. And I would like to, I'll let you know, I see everybody that's here. I don't know who else is going to be watching it. We're going to, what we're doing right now is we're asking people nicely to refer people in because, and actually, Stephanie, I wanted to ask you if you know any entrepreneurs that would benefit from having 3 hours of make it legitimate, make it professional, and make it profitable. That's what the Business Builders Bootcamp is. And what I'm encouraging people to do is to actually sponsor people in. So Colleen, for example, Stephanie, is sponsoring people into it, sponsoring people that she knows, prospects or clients. It's $6.99. So it's a really nice, like, client gift, right? Like to go to your clients and say, hey, I know that you're just starting your business. I think this would be really good for you. I want to sponsor you in. I'm going to PayPal you $6.99. And here's the link for you to sign up. I just met these gals. They're amazing. They have a lot of information. And I think you'll really benefit from doing that. So that's what we have a lot of people doing that for us right now. So if you want to do that, I can send verbiage to you, Stephanie, or anybody else who's interested in how to gift this to prospects, to other female entrepreneurs, or if you, okay, Denise, got it. Or if you just want to, you know, post it in your groups or say, you know, this is something everybody should do and encourage people to do it, you can also do that. And we'll work out a little something to thank you for doing that, because it was a big success. A lot of you are here on this call because you did the Business Builders Bootcamp and you got a lot of value out of it. So I'm asking you to pay it forward, and depending on how many people you refer in, we'll definitely show our appreciation, won't we, Alex? Yes, we will. So thanks everybody for joining. I don't want to, we have a lot coming down the pike, you guys, and a lot of really good stuff. You know, this is, sorry, I'm gonna undo my thing so you can see this. If I can click on the right thing. Here we go. This is where the action is. Like, I try to post it everywhere, and you get emails. Make sure you whitelisted us, because you get emails every Sunday night, like religiously every Sunday night. What's happening in Hey Taxi this week? And it comes to you to kind of key you in. We set up events to help you. Sorry about the snafu with the time on this one. We actually, that's one of the things that Alex and I have been working really hard on. Alex works with me, and we're making all of our events a standard time. They're either going to be at 12 noon. That's why I asked you guys in the poll. They'll either be at 12 noon or at 7 at night, Eastern Standard Time. So there's no more 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 6 o'clock, noon, 7. And then all of our events, all of the monthly events and the standing events, like our strategy sessions and our coming soon is our monthly accounting check-in call, our VIP guest trainers. We're trying to have everything be like second Thursday, 7 p.m., third Thursday, 2 p.m. Like everything's, as much as possible, is going to fit in a slot. So we actually have a calendar for the rest of this year and all of next year of all the dates and the times, so you can load it in your calendar and know what's coming down the pike. And it's good stuff, you guys. We're really excited. We've been, the other thing I want to let you know, Denise, maybe, I know somebody listened to it. Oh, Kathy listened to it. We just came out of Small Business Virtual Extravaganza, and I recorded my signature speech that I wrote just for that. It's the 4 pillars of profitability in your business, and I'm going to post it in our Hey Taxi group so you get a chance to listen to it, because Kathy said it was really good. So I'm just going to go with that. It was really
awesome. Amazing. I don't know if but yeah, it was really worth listening to it. So make sure you listen to it.
Thank you. Okay, we're wrapping it up. Stephanie, thank you for saying yes. Thank you for just saying, sure, I'll come talk to your group about insurance. And even knowing that we're not in Arizona, and knowing that you might not get any business from it, just being such a good egg and educating us and empowering us, because it's what we need as female entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe if we all stick together, things go really well. So I just appreciate the chance, that's for sure.
And if you guys want the information, also just text me. I know there's a lot of stuff coming in the chat, but just message me separately, because I'm rushing to get the snack bags to the field hockey game in time for the senior. My life has been a little insane. So message me if you're interested in any of these things. If you want to talk to Stephanie, hopefully you took her number directly. And Alex, I know you got her number. And everybody say thanks to Stephanie. Really, Stephanie, it was just, you were so kind to come in and help us out.
Thank you. Oh,
Yeah.
my pleasure. You guys were great listeners. I appreciate it.
And if you
We're like
really-
in 2 stores at least every time. So.
Other great people like Stephanie, jump onto the Lunch and Learns. They're
Yeah.
I think you can get a couple for free before you have to be a member of. I'm not sure which one's the membership. I have a link where you can look at everything, but I love it. I love them. Colleen brings really great people into the Lunch and Learns. They're always interesting, and it's definitely a networking group that's
For sure.
worth looking at. So
Yeah.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks,
Later,
Sarah.
Gators.
Thank you.